host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we're talking about Ember, the brainchild of Andrew Allen and YSS, an organization that for over 45 years has provided emergency shelter, addiction treatment, and crisis stabilization for Iowa youth. Today, over 7,000 Iowa kids need treatment they can't get, and Ember is the hope that one day every child in need can get the help they need. Andrew, welcome to the show. This is such a fantastic undertaking. Tell us about Ember.
Peter, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for your service to the state and to the community. I think you're doing a lot to raise awareness about important issues, and really excited to talk more about a project that has been in the making for probably even before my tenure started at YSS. As you mentioned, YSS has been around for more than 45 years, providing hope and opportunity to kids across the state. And we've operated out of old operated out of old houses. So finally, we've got a project and a site that's going to provide services and space commensurate to the programs that we operate.
Now, this has brought together a lot of partners, and in some ways, the admission by the powers that be that we need to do something different, that this is unacceptable, that we have so many children need this help. Can you talk about some of the major players here that have helped bring this to bear? Because this is millions of dollars going to work on behalf of some at-risk kids that don't get a lot of help.
Yeah, that's right. This is a major investment into Iowa's behavioral health for kids. I think that the pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, people understood the need that was growing, and it's obvious today, both from a mental health standpoint, from a substance use disorder standpoint. Behavioral health is getting a lot of attention because the needs are so great. The biggest partner is the CICS, Mental Health and Disability Services Region. Just a year ago this month, so September of last year, 12 different county boards of supervisors came together and approved unanimously a $10 million gift to ensure that this project got done. The project's grown from maybe a $12 million scope to more than $20 million today. This is going to be a 55,000 square foot facility on more than 50 acres of prairie and timber, centrally located with 70 beds of trauma-informed, nature-based, experiential treatment for kids and families from across the state. So you're right, it took a lot of partners. CICS is the greatest, and we've got many private donors who have also invested in this project to be sure it gets done.
And not the least of which, the legacy that YSS has in Iowa and in the community. I mean, you've helped over the years thousands of kids, and this is a significant sort of amping up of how many kids you're going to work with.
Yeah, I think that YSS serves more than 10,000 kids and families every year. Sometimes it's a low touch, 45-minute mentoring session over the course of a semester, or a therapy session. Sometimes it's high touch, like intensive substance use disorder residential treatment for 3 to 4 months at a time. And later this quarter, probably this month or next month, we will admit our 5,000th client into our most intensive program, YSS Residential Addiction Treatment, in 42 years of providing service. Ember will allow us to achieve that in a fraction of the time. We've got estimates that this program and site could serve more than 500 kids every year. So just think we'll hit our 10,000th kid served in just the next decade.
That's a fantastic goal. Now we're going to take a short break, but before that, we're going to share an interesting video with you. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss any of this.
For more than 45 years, YSS has been creating hope and opportunity, operating programs from old houses in a residential neighborhood. But given the increased need across the state, it's no longer the right tool for the job. More than 7,000 kids need treatment every year in Iowa and don't get it. Now there's hope. We're working on a campus project to combine crisis stabilization, emergency shelter, and substance use disorder treatment for adolescents and transition age youth, serving the entire state in a centrally located campus, nature-based, on more than 50 acres between Ames and Des Moines. We're creating a best-in-class program alongside best-in-class facilities on a best-in-class site.
Ember Youth Recovery Campus. Ember represents hope, a small glowing fragment of fire that, when nurtured and cared for, creates a fire for life in the hearts of those that will be served.
The thing that gets me the most excited about the new campus is going to be allowing the kids to be out in nature, to be able to really ground themselves, be able to see the trees, see the wind move through the trees, be able to feel the grass in their hands.
The road to recovery starts here.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're with Andrew Allen from YSS. Andrew, most people are not really aware of the scope of the problem in Iowa, and 7,000 kids, they're not invisible, but in some ways they might as well be. Help us understand the problem and your unique perspective on this issue.
Yeah, I think substance use disorder is nothing new to this state or this country. I do think it's getting increased awareness, especially as opioid overdoses related to fentanyl are on the rise. You saw the governor, alongside the Department of Public Health and Department of Health and Human Services at the state level have a press conference just a couple of months ago. It was just a week ago that we celebrated Overdose Awareness Week. And I'm, actively following multiple families who are grieving the loss of a young person on their own way through social media because of an overdose death. So, I think some of us might recall back to high school, parties where people are drinking or, smoking pot on gravel roads. And I just think that things have been exacerbated as of late, as the intensity of these drugs have increased, as kids and families even are coping with mental health issues, anxiety and depression, self-medicating with drugs. A big issue is just the reduced risk, perception of risk as it relates to drug use, especially marijuana. More and more kids are using, more and more kids are struggling with said use, and families are really desperate and hopeless. That's what we hope to embody as it relates to the name for Ember. Ember really represents a small growing fragment of fire that can be revived, and when cared for, Peter, reminds youth and families that there is still hope, enough fire in their hearts to overcome life's challenges. And that's what Ember, we hope, brings to the state, is hope for families that are desperate.
When we talk about superstars, say in the sports world, there's sort of they call it the love of the game clause. And in a way, you are a superstar in Iowa. And there is a love of the game sort of relationship here with you and YSS. Your personal history brought you to this sort of perfect storm of abilities to recognize not only your potential, but exercise it. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I think sometimes when I introduce myself, well, my title at YSS is president and CEO. My most important title is alumnus. So I was one of those kids. My family struggled with identifying the right resources for me. I think addiction just doesn't discriminate. And while I had a genetic predisposition because my dad was alcoholic, he became sober before I was even born. So I never experienced his active addiction. I was sure genetically predisposed. And I had a lot of the characteristics, Peter, of a drug addict and alcoholic. Long before I took my first drink, I was, couldn't stand authority. I was, constantly in trouble, really just pushing the limits. And I think that at the time that I got drunk for the first time and then got high for the first time, while oftentimes people associate drugs and alcohol as being the problem for people with substance use disorder, in fact, it was a solution of sorts. It satisfied this yearning inside of me for something different, to feel different than I was when I was sober. And so I sure got into it. I got into it bad. I ended up getting arrested quite a few times and deep into the juvenile justice system. And fortunate that at the last second, at 17 3/4 years of age, while I was still considered a minor, I got treatment at YSS, and I spent 4.5 months of transformative time. I fought it for the first 6 weeks, tooth and nail. I told staff what they could do with their treatment plan. I couldn't stand to be told what to do, like I said. And YSS just believed in me more than I believed in myself. Staff did not allow me to get my way, and they broke me almost like you break a wild horse. And 6 weeks into treatment, on my knees, I said the most desperate prayer in my life. I just said, God, help me. I can't keep living like this anymore. And I'll tell you, Peter, my life hasn't been the same since. And it's because YSS was right there with the kit of tools to encourage me in recovery, to support me through youth development, give me opportunities to not just be sober and recover, but to give back. So, fast forward 20 years from that moment on my knees, I signed the employment papers to become just the second CEO YSS has ever known. And today it's my greatest honor and privilege to get to lead the organization that I credit with saving my life. So yeah, this is a big deal to me. This is more than just a job to me and my family. This really is my purpose, and I just couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm sure it serves as an inspiration for many kids in your community. And we're going to take a short break down. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Ember is just the beginning and ways that you may be able to help. See you all after the break.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here.
Wait.
What?
I can't drive.
Why?
My.
Oh.
Not all internet is priced this good. Switch to Extreme and go super fast for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Oh yeah! Hook up your home with powerful Wi-Fi, 99.99% reliability, and speeds that are FCC proven to be faster than advertised. Not all internet is priced this good. Switch today and get speeds starting at 100 meg for as low as $19.99 a month for a year. Call 844-EXTREME2 for details.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Andrew Allen, about changing the world, about creating an opportunity to help at-risk youth, kids that until now often had little reason to hope. Andrew, there is the building of hope, that name Ember, which is so inspirational when it comes to hope. It still comes into barriers. It's not easy to get to the people that need help. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think that addiction just impacts families in a way that no other disease that I'm aware of does. If a young person's got cancer, diabetes, oftentimes the the neighborhood throws a potluck and people are raising money, and there's a lot of empathy. That said, when somebody's got addiction, especially a young person, what it looks like is, police in your driveway, and kids being defiant, and what looks like recklessness and poor parenting oftentimes. So what you're finding is the stigma for addiction is still great. I think that our community, our state, the nation has done a great job at addressing stigma for mental health over the course of the past few years. Probably more growth and destigmatization coming out of the pandemic for mental health than ever before. It's cool, I'm hearing on college campuses, for kids to have therapists. People are talking about mental wellness and mental health, and the broader field of behavioral health includes addiction and substance use disorder. And so, I feel like many parents of young kids, even of transition age youth, are they're suffering in silence. They don't know where to turn. They think maybe it's a failure from a parenting standpoint. And as someone in long-term recovery myself, who now leads an organization that provides treatment, I'll tell you that we see kids from every socioeconomic background, from very engaged parents to absent parents, and addiction just simply doesn't discriminate. And so I do worry about how best to engage and connect with families who are struggling and suffering. And I think that it's going to take a statewide effort to really continue to address stigma.
Now, when we look at stigma, we look at a very, very sort of complex landscape. We talk about schools, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but at a very young age, children are exposed to substances that are dangerous, media that's dangerous, and anxiety, mental health, substance use disorder. Is it time we need to start teaching not just kids in school, but even young parents, the dialogue necessary to address these issues before they become a problem, so there's more investment in the preventive side?
Yeah, I think so. YSS has a long history of, addressing not just emergency needs and treatment needs, but also the prevention needs of the community. We implement evidence-based programs in schools, things like Too Good for Drugs, the 21st century version of DARE. So yeah, I do think that the conversations that parents are having with kids are extremely important. The relationships that they have with the parents of their friends, I feel like, is also important. I'm amazed at some of the things that I know about my kids' friends that I'm not always sure that their parents know. And so opening up those lines of communication, having dialogue, ensuring that kids at the very least know that you love them, that you're there to support them, and that we all go through adversity, that we all struggle with different things. I'm worried about the correlation between substance use disorder and the increased prevalence of kids dying by suicide. It's epidemic proportions. It's up, multiples of, 2 or 3 times in a short amount of time. And kids and families are struggling. They're really suffering. And I think opening up those lines of communication are extremely important.
So when Ember is here, when Ember is open, and in a sense, Ember's already here. It's YSS. It's growing to be bigger. How do people and families get connected?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. It's a great question. The Department of Health and Human Services at the state of Iowa has a resource called Your Life Iowa, and so there's a website and phone numbers to text. The 811, of course, is the newest suicide behavioral health prevention line. But any community provider like a YSS knows how to get in touch with resources. It's easy. YSS.org is how you get to our website. YSS.org/Ember can talk to you a little bit about the campus that we're building and the expansion of services. But you're right. YSS is providing these services right now. We're just doing them in old houses and smaller settings. And so The message that I have oftentimes for parents, for kids, for the community at large, is that treatment does work and recovery is possible, and people need to know that. Resources are available. They're available today. We serve kids in our residential addiction treatment program as young as 12 all the way up to their 18th birthday. At Ember, we'll be able to serve young adults up into their mid-20s. So we're excited about that expansion of service, but there's lots of treatment options available today.
Wow, that's fantastic. We're going to take a short break and ask Andrew come back and share some comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about Ember, a project that can literally change the world for thousands of young Iowans. Let's see what insights, advice, and inspiration Andrew has to share. Andrew, you've been there, you see the problem. What message would you focus on if you could go back and talk to a younger Andrew? Is there something, I mean, you already said Andrew probably wouldn't have listened to an older Andrew, but what would you try to do?
Yeah, I've generally got two different answers to that question. One is the CEO of YSS, where, much of our work is on the prevention side. And then sometimes just as a person in long-term recovery, where I do feel like most people have to go through everything they go through to get to where they are. So, the biggest message, generally speaking, with both hats on, is just to never give up on what might seem like a hopeless case. I think that many of the kids that we're serving at YSS, people have given up on them. They have lost hope. I have teachers still reach out to me today. I actually just signed acknowledgement letter for a donation, a really generous donation from somebody who I recognized was a teacher. And he had reached out to me after I got sober and even apologized a little and said, you know what, I had given up and maybe didn't give you the due that you were deserved. And so I think it's extremely important that we as a community, family members, neighbors, just don't give up on what might seem like a hopeless case. Peter, one of the joys that I have sitting in this seat is I get to see the impact that's made by more than 300 YSSers across the state who are providing, as you indicated, transformational programs that, are really saving lives. Oftentimes I'll wear a pin, or I'll have my YSS shirt on, and I'll end up at a store or out in the community, and somebody will recognize it. They'll start up a conversation, and it is not uncommon for them to say, I was at YSS when I was a kid, or I benefited from YSS services. One of my favorite stories happened just a year ago, showed up on my Facebook feed as a memory. I was at Casey's picking up a breakfast pizza in the morning, and when a young person graduates our program, I always take pizza and we celebrate, and I just try to encourage them on their way. And as I was asking for the pizza, the young man, he came out from behind the counter and he just handed it to me, and I said, well, thanks. How did you know? And he said, well, there must be a graduation at YSS today. And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, there is. How did you know? And he said, well, you brought me a pizza a few years ago. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Here was a graduate, fully employed, gainfully employed, and recognizing the fact that YSS had had an impact on his life. And I said, well, I was at YSS when I was a kid too. And he says, I know. And then around the corner, the cashier says, I was at YSS too. I couldn't even believe it, Peter. 3 people whose lives have been impacted by YSS. And and there are, hundreds and thousands beyond that. The one thing that I might also leave your listeners with is the desperate need for people to work in this field. YSS has more than 300 employees. We've got more than 70 open positions right now, some doing direct care, really providing that that one-on-one touch to kids and families to provide hope and opportunity, which is our mission. In other cases, we're hiring fundraisers or people that work in technology or people that help with facilities and provide back-end support, people with master's degrees. I've got an attorney on staff. We've got MBAs on staff. There's really opportunity to do very, very purpose-driven, meaningful work at an organization like YSS or in this field. So I think that the message for families who are struggling or desperate is that there is hope, that treatment works, and that recovery is possible, and the way that all folks can help and can contribute is financially. Obviously, YSS is dependent upon charitable contributions to support our work. The Ember project, we've got more than $16 million raised. I think I need about 20 to get the thing done. So we're looking for a few more major investors, but every gift makes a big difference. But if you know of someone who maybe struggled through the pandemic with, their 9 to 5, who maybe is not satisfied or content with a corporate job that might be transactional, where the goal is return on shareholder value. If you know of someone, or maybe you want to get paid to create hope and opportunity, I just can't tell you how meaningful this work is and how important it is for people who care about kids and families to get engaged.
That's a fantastic message, and I think you're onto something here, because there are many, many more people looking for meaningful ways to invest their lives. Thank you for joining us today, Andrew, and thank you all for watching us today. Check out our website, ahealthyiowa.org, and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. I'm MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.